Okay, hi and welcome. Feel free to jump in here at any time and say, hey, we can't hear you. You're frozen. I have a question about that. I want to make this as informal and as possible. And really, it's not for me, even though I may be doing a lot of the talking or all of the talking, it's for you. So I want to arm you. My goal here is to arm you, all that came here to hear about remote supports and assistive technology, with the best information that you need. So it's your time to ask questions and find out information. So feel free at any time to interrupt me with anything, with any questions, comments, concerns regarding what I'm talking about, or your ability to hear me, or the connection, or anything. I am with SafeInHome, and I have two of my colleagues who, one is in Tennessee joining us. Michael Dixon is on here, and Christina Romel from Pittsburgh, PA. So we are expanding into other states. We have Indiana as well, Virginia, Pittsburgh, or that's not a state, Pennsylvania, Tennessee. I don't think I've left anybody off yet, but and then other states as well are jumping on. But Ohio has really taken the lead on technology. So it's very exciting to see what Ohio is doing and what SafeInHome is doing in Ohio, and Mahoning County, Portage County. You guys out that direction have done a lot with technology and remote supports. So SafeInHome, what are we about? Right there says it all, the first three words you see after SafeInHome. Person-centered solutions. We offer individualized solutions. One size does not fit all. You live in a world where everybody, I mean, we all live in this world where everybody is unique, and we cannot just hand you a menu and say, pick something, pick this A, B, or C, because it just doesn't work that way. So we work together to find an individualized solution. They're developed by the team, by all of us, focusing on that individual. Often we'll sit in a room with the team, and if you guys can dream it up, maybe that includes me, if we can dream it up, then SafeInHome can support it. And that's often what happens, and it's exciting to see that happen. Remote support staff, they also are part of the magic that happens, of course, because they're on the other end of that phone call or that conversation, available 24/7. And something we've really started to realize that we need to take a shift in direction, and maybe not a shift, but an extension is, and we'll talk about this throughout this tonight, is encouraging decision-making skills. So not just being responsive to, what do you need? How are you? But how can we help you grow in whatever it is you're learning and whatever it is you need to be learning? What's your outcome in the ISP? How can we extend that? And we're always using the latest technology. We're always trying to update and use the best technology that we can to support our individuals. All right. Are you doing that, Ashley? Are you making it go next, or am I? You got it. Okay. Person-centered solutions. And that'll come up that you know the person, you know your son, daughter, sibling, you know the individual and the desired outcome. If you're an SSA in here, you know their outcomes, their ISPs, what they're learning. And then the second part will come up here, want to work on a solution together. All right. So this is a little video. This is on our Facebook page and probably our website too. I think if you click on Gary, is it working?
I'm clicking on Gary, but it's not quite working.
Gary's not working, Gary? Okay, so maybe Gary.
Not working.
It doesn't seem to be, okay. Shoot, okay, well, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see Gary, and I can send the link out too, and it's just a brief video that talks about remote supports and independence and safety. So you can skip that slide. Okay, support in the 21st century. Looking at those keywords up there, choice, control, and independence for the people that we serve. Our vision is to support independent living. We focus on being person-centered. We focus on the person. We make decisions together, that person at the center of all the decisions that we make. And hopefully, I had a conversation this morning with an SSA and their provider, and we were starting to talk about, how are we going to support Bob? And then we said, let's get Bob on the phone, because Bob needs to make some of these very important decisions. And so later on, we had to wait way later because Bob was up too late last night. But when Bob got up about 2 o'clock this afternoon, we had an hour-long conversation, and Bob was, by the end of the phone call, Bob was very excited that he was going to have some independence. And for the first time in 4.5 years, he is no longer going to have 24/7 staff. he is going to have all but 12 hours of staff a week. We'll have 12 hours of staff, and then the rest will be pretty much alone with remote supports there to support him. So, but he was the focus of this conversation. How do you want us to call you? What do you, so solution approach, we listened to him for the solution. What's going on in the home? Tell us about everything, Bob. And then we built a tech around that. So it's not, here's our technology and what it's going to do for you. It's let's listen to what's going on in the solution, and then we build the tech around that. So that fourth bullet down there, connected independence without the isolation or intrusion doesn't mean that they're going to be alone. Isolation doesn't mean they're on their own alone. It means that they're connected when they want to be connected. You know, when they choose, like we told Bob today, when we call you on the tablet, you know, he doesn't want to be bothered, so to speak. So we said, well, when we call you, Bob, on the tablet, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Now, if we're trying to get a hold of you because we think something's wrong, he's a fall risk, and you don't answer the tablet, then we have a couple other ways we're going to try and call you. And the ISP says that if we don't get a hold of you, then we're going to take the next step. But if it's just a well check, and if the ISP says, you know, on the regularly scheduled well checks, if we don't get a hold of him, we just mark it as we tried, and he's probably just taking a nap, so we're not bothering him. So it's connection when he wants to be and needs to be connected. And then the last line, empowerment and decision making, really helping folks to, how can we help you make a decision rather than being that directive decision making for them or doing something for them, but helping them with whatever they want it is to learn. Okay. Moving on, support during where we are right now until, I'm going to speak very positively, until this COVID passes, or maybe we just learn to live with whatever comes our way, whatever it may be, whatever storm comes our way. We've been already living in a shortage of DSPs, social distancing guidelines, limit direct contact, and maybe that's a concern that's already been here because of germs or whatever it might be. Then you factor in some mental health concerns with isolation. We've had a lot of folks that have wanted to use our equipment, not even really from a remote supports, but just to be able to use an app, Skype or something, to be able to connect with somebody else when they can't be face-to-face in person. So all of this for SafeInHome means that our priority is still allowing individuals to be independent and use their self-determination, empowering them to still do what they've always done, what we think and what they want and always should be able to do. And this slide's just showing you, we've got our friend in the middle, remote support staff on the outside, all of these things, and we'll talk about all these things throughout the presentation. Your remote support staff specialist or staff support on the top left corner there. Our sensor technology, which is a lot of what we use. You don't see a camera on here because typically we're not using cameras unless somebody really wants a camera for some reason, or they're used outside of the home, mostly in the form of a video doorbell where somebody wants to see who's coming to their door, and that might not even be used by SafeInHome, but by the individuals themselves or their care circle. On the bottom right corner, we have more assistive technologies, mostly communication devices, our tablet, the MPERS device, which we'll talk about that. It's I like to call it just a simplified cell phone, much like a what's that, life alert, your seizure band, the doorbell, the Alexa device. And the top right is very critical. I think it's a really key piece in obtaining information and knowing what's going on in someone's life without being invasive of them, is our care notes, our weekly reports. Any interactions that happen in between this individual and the remote support staff are all documented. So remote support staff calls in, reminds Johnny to take his medicine. Johnny says, nope, not doing it, call me back. It's documented. And those notes are shared with the SSA on a weekly basis, so we can see what patterns are happening in the home. Okay, and these are just some pictures of our sensors. They're really showing you how small they are. That in the middle, on the left and the middle, those are both our motion sensors. And you can keep clicking, Ashley. I think some things will kind of come up about our whole system. They're sensor-based. They passively track activities in the living space. A good example is our company was originally founded for the elderly. So if you can imagine grandma and, I want to know when grandma's up and about and moving and I'm keeping an eye on her, I don't need to see what grandma's doing and who she's got over, that's her business. But I have motion sensors throughout her room. So it's passively tracking her activity. It's not watching her, but I can see that, okay, I look on and you can see this bottom right corner, it tells me at 9 o'clock, there was no more movement in the home. The last movement was seen in bed. So I can see that. Then I can see at midnight, she was up, she went down the hallway, she went into the bathroom, and she went back, got in bed. Again, same thing happened at 1 a.m., same thing happened at 3 a.m. So I can say, wow, grandma's getting up 3 or 4 times at night and going back to bed. I talked to grandma about it the next day. No, I'm not doing that. So that clues me into some things that could be going on. Is grandma not knowing what's going on during the night? No wonder she's tired during the day. If I check and I don't have an alert that grandma is up by 9 a.m., that's going to signal me to call in and check why is she not up by 9 a.m. when typical patterns show that she is up by 9 a.m. So our sensors, door sensors, window sensors, these motion sensors, they also detect room temperature and light. We'll send text messages to SafeInHome or to the care circle with movement or non-movement, letting us know, there's movement in the bathroom. Should there be, should there not be? And then it can, of course, alert us to either look at a camera if there's cameras in the home, or just alert us to the screen saying, should that event be happening? According to the ISP, does that mean we need to make a call because there should be no movement in the living room at 3 a.m. with something going on? Okay, you can keep moving on, actually. I think things will pop up on this slide as well. So our remote support specialists, what do? They are trained just like your DSPs would be. They're not doing anything obviously hands-on like DSPs would be, but they can do the same thing as long as it doesn't require obviously physical. I can't put your shoes on, I can't cut up your food. Those kinds of requirements, that's gonna be the end of our limits there. They will encourage decision-making abilities, not directive. A good example of this is the other day when I was meeting with the team and we were getting what we called our call tree. So if Jess has a concern and she calls, and the mom gave me the example of sometimes her smoke alarm goes off and it just drives her nuts and she hits at it with the broom, and she kept calling mom who's 20 to 30 minutes away. What would remote supports do? And we said, well, we could call, she could call us, we could walk her through that. We obviously can't come help her with that. I guess we would call you, mom, because we're using natural supports as who's going to go to the home if it's not an emergency. And well, again, I'm 20 or 30 minutes away. Then she started thinking about, oh, we have all these great neighbors. And so we said, okay, would the neighbors be willing to come help? They would. So we said, okay, let's put the neighbors on the call tree. We'll call Sue and Tom, and then we'll call Jody. And then mom said, I'd really like her to learn to call the neighbors. She has a great relationship with them. And you could see Jess going, yeah. So we thought, okay, Jess, when you have something, we're going to walk you through this decision making. Is this a thing that you could call Tom and Sue across the street for? We'll walk you through. Why don't you pick up the phone and say, Tom, would you be able to come help me? We can even stay on the tablet with you as you make the call. And we're helping her to reach out for help when she needs to, with the goal being that she will ask for help on her own of her natural support system. She's welcome to call us, but that's something that any of us would do is, if I need help getting my tractor out of the mud, I'm going to call my husband, call the neighbor. And that's something that Jessica wants help with too. Okay, you can keep going. I see George asking a question here. Do we have a formal assessment that we use to determine the type of technology that would meet the needs of an individual? We don't have a formal assessment, George. We do have a request for service form that you may have seen that asks pretty basic questions. I haven't really used it just because I feel like for SSAs and anybody to fill out, it's one more piece of information. And when I meet with people, I'm going to gather that information anyways. Typically what happens is one of two things. Somebody will come and say, I need an iPad or I need a tablet because so-and-so needs this. And they'll give me a reason. And then once we start talking about what is really happening, what their situation is and what they're trying to accomplish, we find out, oh, you actually don't need that, you need this. So finding out the whole story can kind of change what the solution, what the technology might be. Or when we start talking about it, you know, they ask us for a menu of, can you just tell me all of the technology, and we'll pick what we need. And then we're missing the boat because we aren't listening to. So they kind of match up what their idea of a solution is instead of what we're supposed to, you know, if they gave me if I give them a formal assessment and they said, okay, it comes back and yep, you need this, this, and this, without hearing the whole story and really doing a very, you know, face-to-face conversation, or even virtual. A lot of them are happening virtual. We kind of feel like we're missing something there. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we're following the ISP. If needed, we notify members of the care circle or natural supports provider agency. We'll work with any agency. We don't have our own HPC providers that we're calling, so we'll work with any, you know, if you already have a provider, we'll work with them if they want to be backup for remote supports. Also, when it says to follow the ISP, we take the ISP, we take all the information that we need to develop a care plan. We have a meeting with our remote support staff and our client services team. And we want to know things, you know, we even ask the individual, tell us, you know, you're telling us that you're scared of a storm and you're scared when strangers come to the door and you get nervous. What kinds of things do we need to say to you? What phrases should we say? You know, do we need to avoid mentioning the Cleveland Browns? Is that going to raise your blood pressure? You know, what kind of things do we need to avoid and what kind of things bring you comfort? And our remote support specialists, they will, you know, use these things with each individual that they've asked us to do. So it's very customized and individualized to the person. Okay, so some examples. This young lady here, this was not an exact example, but we had a young woman who was calling 911 for every issue. How to turn the hot water off, what to do when her cat coughed up a fur ball, not sure if she should answer the door. And a lot of things were even health issues that would end up for her to go to the hospital. And she didn't want to go to the hospital. When I met with her, she said, I want to, I'm scared when I get there, especially with all of this happening over the summer. And her mom didn't want to go into the hospital to bring her home. And it was just, so we said, let's try remote supports. What we cannot do is say, don't call 911. You know, we couldn't discourage her. You know, if she felt like she needed to call 911, and obviously we couldn't prevent her from doing that. But what has happened, and she's been with us since June, I want to say, it was warm when we met outside somewhere, and she has been able to call 911 first, or I'm sorry, call remote supports first. So rather than calling 911, she calls remote supports. She's developed a relationship, a rapport with our remote support staff, and she's able to just talk through whatever it is that's bothering her, because it's really not physical health issues that get her there. It's more, I got a problem with my fiance, you know, he's bothering me. He's always watching TV, but it comes out in 911, I'm sick, I need to go, come get me. And she ends up in the hospital. So her hospital visitation has gone way down. You know, she's not calling 911, she's calling us, and she's walking through and talking through her problems. And it's done wonders for her mom, who doesn't have to leave her home and go to the hospital or talk her through things in the middle of the night. Hopefully her relationship at home too as well. So we're helping her to make those good decisions and decide, you know, if you need to call 911, you know, that's her decision. She may need to do that, but we're here for her as well. So it's been a good thing. This is an example of what we see on our end when we have motion sensors or door window sensors in somebody's home. So you can see across the top, we call it our dashboard. Across the top is the time, and down on the left-hand side are the different rooms where motion sensors are in. So when we're looking at this, we can see there's some movement in the dining room, somebody went to the kitchen, back to the living room. So we see a pattern of behavior. Over time, our remote support staff, this information is analyzed, and we can see, okay, like I was giving the example of grandma earlier, this data is taken and say, okay, we can see normal routine patterns happening. You know, grandma's always awake and up and around and moving at 9 a.m. If she's not, that might indicate that we need to call and say, everything okay? If somebody is stuck, if the ISP were to say, if there is no movement in the bathroom for more than 20 minutes, we do a call and check in and say, everything okay? If there's a fall risk and we don't see movement anywhere in the house, and there's no indication that somebody's on the bed or their favorite chair, because we have a bed presence sensor and a chair presence sensor, then that might indicate that somebody's on the floor. We can't prevent that from happening, but we can reduce the response time if we know that somebody has fallen and they either reached out and they've said, yes, I've fallen, or we've reached out because we think they've fallen and we can't get a hold of them. Let me see, Donna has a question. How does it work if the individual doesn't live alone? That's a really good question. If the individual doesn't live alone, we would see the motion sensors kind of like you see almost directly under 7:30 a.m. in the first blue line, you see two dots in two different places. We can't tell that, let's say Johnny and Joey are roommates. We can't tell which one is Johnny and which one is Joey. Or if they have animals in the home. We're not going to know the dog's in one room and the two dogs are in the, we just see that there is movement. So then it's a different story. If we're looking at a fall risk, we're not really going to know because we're always going to see some movement probably, unless those dogs are in a cage or something. So then we would have to put in different layers of protection to let us know that. So it will not work for different solutions as well if there's multiple people living in a home or there's animals in a home that are doing movement. That's when we might have to do more check-ins. There may have to be, we can set the motion sensors so that they are higher range, so that anything below like 2 feet. But if you have a cat, that's not going to help because cats might jump. And if you have multiple people living in the home, then it's not going to, let us know who's doing what movement. Okay, you can move ahead. And these are really small, so we're gonna go ahead in 1 second, but that will show you the weekly reports that the SSA will receive and can pass on to anybody in the care circle. So that's caregivers or whoever is allowed to receive those reports or wants to receive those reports. And then these reports can be shared. A lot of information can be gathered. Like I said, if somebody doesn't know that they're up during the middle of the night, you might see that. If you don't know what's happening with your son or daughter and how much they're going to use remote support, you might think, oh, there's going to be very independent on their own, and I don't think we're going to need remote supports too long. You might see, oh, they're not calling in very much at all. Or, oh, wow, they're calling in for cooking, and I didn't even realize they did cook. So you might gather some information that you wouldn't normally see because they're calling in and it's their own relationship without guardians, without anybody else around, without staff being really present. A different kind of relationship sometimes takes place and things are documented. We can document, if somebody has on-site, on-call staff overnight and if they're sleeping, they don't need awake staff. They won't know if somebody's getting up in the middle of the night 3 or 4 times a night. But our sensors would be able to see that story. Our sensors would let us know so-and-so's getting up 3 or 4 times a night, even whether they're sleepwalking or they're getting up because they're stressed because of what's going on in the world. No wonder they're falling asleep at work. Something's not right, and nobody is aware that that's happening because their staff's asleep. But motion sensors, and not even our staff, but motion sensors might see that, doing. So if you go another slide forward, Ashley, we'll see a larger picture of these. So this is my care notes label got messed up. But the idea here is that you can see the start date and end date of support, the times, what happened. On the right-hand side, we have, who was the SafeInHome representative. Everything's been blocked out, so we can't, this is kind of made up anyways, but, a check-in call via the tablet at what time, client stated she was doing well, sleeping in. They kind of just some real general what happened, she appeared cheerful, she's smiling tonight, reports she slept well, no questions or concerns at this time. And so if things get deeper, then that would be in here. Some of them are quite interesting, and then some are just, very simple, like, hey, she called in, that's all she wanted. And some people have very passive support where we are just there and they call us to say, I'm scared, I need help. Should I use milk or water in my mac and cheese? And we're not really doing much active support where we're calling in at 2, 5, 7 to check on them or do reminders. They're just calling us to check in. Am I okay? Am I, how am I? That kind of thing. So you can move ahead. And the next one is sleeping activity. Yeah, my labels are messed up again. This one shows the estimated sleep times. If no bar is present, no estimate was made. So you can see probably through the bed presence sensor, this would be done. The bed presence or chair presence sensor acts the same way. If there's pressure on the bed pad or the chair pad, we know that the individual is in the bed or in the chair, or they're not. So that helps with sleeping patterns. That helps with fall risks. Those that have are at a risk for fall. We have a lady in Stark County that has a chair sensor and a bed sensor. She's a fall risk. She uses an Alexa to contact us, and then she has motion sensors throughout her house. So if we don't see movement and she's not either sitting in her favorite chair or in her bed, then we reach out to her through the Alexa so she doesn't have to crawl over and answer it if she has fallen. And we can ask her, Miss Gina, are you okay? Then she can respond, yeah, I'm just sitting on the floor, not moving, or, not respond at all, which means then we would call either 911 or backup, whatever the ISP tells us to check in on her. And this is kitchen activity. So we're just looking at movement, what's happening. These are the different dates, as you can see. And what does this data do for you and I? Not as much. What does it do for the remote support team when they have it up on their screens and they're seeing kitchen activity, bedroom activity, wherever sensors might be in someone's home? It does a lot more for them. So the idea behind these and me showing you these is just so that you can see that we have a good eye from the sensors. We're not looking through a camera. Like I had to tell Bob today, we're not going to see what you're doing, what you're wearing. If you're shaking your fist at us because you think we're invasive, we're not. All we can see is a dot that says you're in the kitchen and you're moving around. And we know that if you're in the kitchen and you're moving around, you're safe. If we don't see movement when you're normally up and moving around throughout the day, then we're going to call and check on and just make sure you're safe. So that's the purpose behind that. Sometimes the kitchen sensors, kitchen motion sensors are coupled with a stove sensor. And if the stove sensor is on, it's detecting heat, tells us the stove is on and the temperature is rising. And if there's no movement in the kitchen, then that indicates that the individual has started cooking his macaroni and cheese and walked away. And we're going to call and say, that's not good. You need to get back there or turn the stove off, or, smoke alarms, all that kind of stuff. This is our MPERS tracking. The MPERS stands for Mobile Personal Emergency Response System. It's like a life alert. If you've seen the life alert commercials, it is a little 2-inch pendant. I have a picture of it here in a little bit, and it's really like a simplified cell phone. It runs off cell service, so it's a great little feature. You don't need internet. You can take it anywhere with you. I have an individual who, her daughter, they like to go to Cedar Point. And the daughter, when she gets there, she gets so excited and she just takes off and goes from ride to ride to ride to ride. She's not going to answer her cell phone. And by the time mom gets to the whatever blue streak, daughter's off to the Magnum. So with the MPERS, the mom can call the device and the daughter does not have to answer it. She doesn't have to press any buttons. Mom can just automatically be saying, Susie, where are you? Stay there. Now she may not stay there. So then mom can actually take her phone and text LOC, location, and it'll text her back the actual location, the Google link location. She can click on that and she can see where she is and start heading that way. So she doesn't have to, it's a little bit quicker than Susie not answering her call and finally answering it, maybe telling her where she is while she's on her way somewhere else. So it does that. It also will do the geofencing, which is setting up a geofence, an imaginary fence around maybe church and home and work. Every time that individual goes in or out of that geofence perimeter, and in support, natural support, mom, dad, sister, brother, provider, whoever, can get a text message that says the individual has left and the individual has arrived at geofence location. So rather than having to text the device or call somebody and say, where are you? Or constantly track, you can just simply get a text message that says, they arrived home. They arrived at school. Well, they left that area. So this is what that picture kind of shows. Good to go. And then person-centered solutions, human connection, passive technology, it's all in the center. And these are just different things that we support. So I'm going to give you some examples and some success stories in a minute. We have solutions. These are areas that we consider that are usually when somebody comes to us and says, I have this individual and this is what's going on, it usually falls into one of these categories. I've talked a lot about fall risk mitigation, some of the sensors and things that we do. Overnight supports also, coupled with like a tablet and motion sensors. We're providing you know, we're there. We're basically there if somebody needs us in the middle of the night. We can see what's going on. If there's habits that nobody is aware of, our staff is awake and on call 24/7. Medication management, I'm kind of jumping around over here. Medication management, we do have pill dispensers, varying levels of security boxes. Our med management, when we talk about that, it's generally using remote supports to ensure that somebody is taking their meds. We can't, obviously, through remote supports, hand somebody their medication. We can't fill pill boxes. We can't go out to the home and fill it once a week or once a month. But what we can do is we can call, we can remind them to take their medicine. They have the power and ability to say, no, I'm watching the Cosby Show. Can you call me back in 20 minutes? And we'll do that. And then they can say, yeah, I'm not ready. Call me back in 30 minutes. And we'll say, okay, we'll call you back in 30 minutes. And if the ISP says, you know, try up to an hour, and if they don't, or if they refuse, just mark it in the care notes. Or maybe if they refuse, call mom. Mom's coming over there to, you know, have a conversation. But that's all we can do is observe that somebody takes their medicine or verbally confirm, take their word for it. And depending on the individual, maybe they just need that little reminder. And then once they say, yes, I did it, you know, everybody agrees that, oh yeah, if she said she did it, she did it. And then we record that in our care notes. The SSA is getting that, and they can say, oh yeah, every time she calls, she's really getting into the habit. You know, gosh, remote support's called at 9:15. She had already taken it. Remote support's called on Tuesday at 9:15. They told her to call back. Remote support's called back at 9:45. She said no at 10 o'clock. They still hadn't taken it. She's still, you know, so you can see what's happening. It's all documented. It's very, you know, whether she uses our dispenser, she has her own system, she takes meds out of a shoebox. The point is that we're there to confirm, record, and help her with that management of those meds, which then, of course, prevents a lot of things like maybe falls, maybe seizures, other behaviors. Elopement or unsafe departure, you know, we can't prevent anybody from going anywhere. If they want to go, they're going to go. But what we can do, what we hope to do, is know when they're going. If we need to know a lot of information. And again, if somebody says, checks a box and says elopement, and then we say, okay, here's the impers. So when they want to elope, they just have to press the button, or they just take it with them and then we can track it. That's not a good lineup of that. Would say, I would want to say, first of all, when are they eloping? Because if they're leaving, if they're doing an unsafe departure, if they're leaving at night, then I would want to know, how are they leaving? If they're leaving out their window, or do they sleep with their bedroom door shut? And if you told me, yes, they only tend to leave in the middle of the night, of course, when I'm asleep, and they sleep with their bedroom door shut. And I would say, okay, then I would start with a bed presence sensor. You know, if they would be willing to do that, you know, they may say, I see that thing, and take it out. But that would tell you when they're in bed, and you could get a text message. SafeInHome could get it, or mom could get it, who's sleeping down the hallway, a text message that says they're out of bed. And then if they go out the window, you're going to have a window sensor that says, as soon as that window is open, you're getting a text message that says the window's open. So now you have two text messages saying something's happening. Or if they open the door, if they sleep with the door shut, the door's open, you have another one. A motion sensor in the hallway to tell you that there's movement in the hallway. Unless you have a dog or somebody else that's moving in the hallway, then you'll know there's another message that there's movement in the hallway. And then the front door, you got a door sensor on the front door where they're leaving. So now you've had 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your fifth message, your fifth alert that there's something happening. And then a camera or a doorbell video doorbell on the front door. That's the way they're leaving. That you can see the direction they're going. You can also talk through it. Tony, stop! You need to stop. We're gonna have pizza in a few minutes. Come back. You know, whatever you think might be the key phrase that's going to hopefully, you know, and by that time, hopefully you've had 5 alerts. Somebody's on the move to you know, stop that elopement from happening. Right. I'm trying to not take too much time. Seizure management. We have a seizure band that will detect grand mal seizures. So somebody that has rapid seizure or rapid, you know, repetitive muscle contractions. Those words seem to get jumbled up for me. It will, paired with a Bluetooth device, cellular phone or a tablet, it will send a text message to someone alerting them that they are having a seizure. It just senses the muscle movement, and that is simply what it does. It notifies somebody else that a seizure is taking place. seizure management, the whole solution, depending on the individual, it could be used with remote supports, meaning we're doing med management, we're doing reminders to drink water and eat healthy. And that too could involve a whole package of what's happening, why are the seizures happening? I seem to have found that oftentimes we don't know. A lot of people just don't know. They just happen. We would love to wrap it up in a pretty package and say it's because they're not eating enough dairy and they're not drinking enough water. And then we could say, all right, remote supports is going to come in and remind them to drink water and have a bowl of ice cream, and that will prevent their seizures. But I've often found that just doesn't seem to be the case. Unfortunately, seizures are just, they have their own mind, I guess. And then activities of daily living down there at the bottom left-hand corner. We do all kinds of reminders for people. We have had people that, can you remind me to feed my fish? He's a red fish, his name is Blue, and I need reminded every night at 7 o'clock, please call me to remind me to feed my fish. And then I also need reminded to take out my trash on Thursdays, and, hygiene, brushing my teeth and getting ready, packing my lunch. When the bus comes, it comes at 9 o'clock. I need to be out the door by 8:45. Can you also watch on the outdoor camera to make sure that, I have actually been picked up and I'm not standing out there waiting, because sometimes the bus forgets and leaves me there and I just stand there and wait. So all of those things, remote supports can assist them with and help them to make good decisions. Do you think you should come back in? If the bus is sitting there, we're going to call. We can support all of those things that they have going on during the day. Okay. Okay, nearing the end. These are some success stories, and I will just kind of go through these. I've talked about most of these devices and solutions, and you can roll through, Ashley, the first one. Oh, it's coming up funny. There's some pictures of some devices. This is for Josh. I don't know why it's coming up funny. Okay, so we asked Josh, what's important to you? And we're person-centered. We want to be focused on the individual. So now we have a name, which is so much better than saying the person and the individual. So we asked Josh, what's going on? What's important to you? What's important for you? What does your day look like? What is a good day? I love that sometimes I can still go into homes, but sometimes, people are more comfortable just doing it virtually, which is fine too. But I love when I can sit in and say, you have movies. Tell me about these movies that you watch. And they just light up telling me. And then so much of their world is opened up, and it's nice to see. And the whole team is just, oh yeah, if you could talk to him about movies, he would love that. I can take that information back to our remote supports team, and it just opens up doors and connections are started. Okay, important to Josh, he wants independence. He wants to be in charge of himself and not have overnight staff. So if you keep going, Ashley, they want work, home, and arrival needs to be confirmed. We want to know that he got home, that he got to work. So we're going to put the motion and door sensors in so that we know when he started his day. We know when he's up and about, because the motion sensors, and I hate this picture of the motion sensor. As you can see, there is a light on it that looks like an eye. We never turn those on because it looks like it's watching you, and it is not watching you. So really bad marketing on this company's behalf to put an eye on there, but it's not watching anything. The motion sensors tell us when somebody's up and moving. When he's left the house, we know because the door sensor sends us a signal, a text message. And by the way, the door sensors or the motion sensors, those do not make audible alarms, which is nice because they are not, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a nice thing to have, a nice feature that they don't, because every time you open your door, you don't need it to tell you that you've opened your door. We know it's opened the door. If somebody else in the home needs to know that the door is open, that Johnny has opened the door, then you get a text message. So it's discreet. It's not embarrassing that, every time I open my door, I know that my staff knows or my mom knows. So I think that's a nice thing. That's not like you're being tattled on. The stove sensor, if he leaves the stove on, we can know that. The geofencing, if he is near home or near work, when he enters those perimeters, we can know, staff can know, we can know, parents can know. And then the tablet when he wants to make the connection, the two-way audio-visual connection. So he's happier, safety and work are supported. It's important that he wants to be alone and independent, but he also knows that he's safe. Okay, and then Joseph. Again, he doesn't want the overnight staff. He wants to feel safe though, so it's kind of a toss-up, and sometimes the conversation is is at first difficult to understand. How can I have both of those things? How can I feel safe if I don't have overnight staff? And so it's things like this. It's meetings like this, and me coming in and bringing in, this is my phone, not a tablet, but me bringing in the tablet and saying, make the connection with our staff and let's try it and see, would you feel safe with that rather than somebody sleeping on your couch? And not everybody does feel safe like that, but some are feeling like, okay, I think I can do this. I'm at a point where I can use remote supports. So again, the sensors are letting us know where in the house he might be. If he has a tendency to leave, we're going to know because he's gotten up. The bed presence sensor tells us, the door sensors, all of that. Camera inside the exit door. Some will have a camera inside the exit door. Like I said, most have them outside of the home, but some will have a camera just pointing at the indoor, at the very entrance, at the foyer, or the very entrance of their home, just to see what's going on. Often that happens in apartment buildings that they don't want to put a camera or they aren't allowed to put a camera, but the individual will agree to having a camera just pointed at the inside, and they even feel safer because if they open the door and they don't know who it is, or they don't have a peephole, and they happen to open that door, they know that it's on there, somebody else is watching, or at least it can be recorded what happens. So, and then I think there's one more little piece of info on here. We're encouraging good decision-making skills, especially if he has tendency to leave. We can kind of walk him through that. Depends on what the elopement is around or what's encouraging the elopement. And he has dramatically reduced the time he leaves without checking in with someone before, and he's enjoying the private time. A lot of times with my friend Gina, who has some fall risk, she had staff, and her staff brought us in because they just said, something's got to give here. She's not, either we go or she goes kind of thing. And when we came in and started doing some remote supports, we did just like the nighttime hours. And then it kind of grew that we did a little bit more in the evening and a little bit more in the morning. And the more time she had on her own or with remote supports, the better her time was with her staff. So when her staff did come to get her up and ready, help her out the door, take her out for groceries, do some cooking with her, she was much more pleasant with them. And so it's been really, really good to see that her behavior has changed with people because she has some time to herself. So, and the next one is Bessie, and you can just click so these things come up. I don't know why they, whoops. Sorry, I don't know why they got, I was working on this most of the day. That's why I didn't get sent to Ashley until late, and I was trying to make it just right. And Bessie is kitchen safety and med compliance. So she wants to make her own bedtime snack and take her meds. So I talked about meds earlier. So this is one, she really just has simply a tablet. She calls in to us, or we can call into her, 7 o'clock, make sure she's making her evening snack okay, and remind her to take her meds. We just need to confirm that she took them. And then that's all documented in our care notes. She has a 4G smoke detector and carbon monoxide. That will, the 4G, what it does is it sends an alert to us. So it will make an audible alert so Bessie can know, oh, my smoke detector is going off, but it will also let us know that it's going off too. So we can notify the fire department, we can notify her, we can notify whatever staff or whoever in her care circle that needs to be notified that something's going on to the rescue. And then these are just some quotes that families, individuals, people are saying about remote supports. There's more private time. They don't have somebody watching or directing them. I've had 2 people in the past 2 days. The one today was 4.5 years that he's had 24/7 staff. The man yesterday, he's not using remote supports yet, but he is 74 years old and it is his first time living on his own. So he's moved into a home. He's living with a roommate. And right now he's just using some assistive technology equipment. So we're not involved as far as remote supports and our team talking to him. Hopefully we might get there, but right now he's just using some of our equipment to talk to his family. So he has staff 24/7, but he might have an hour of alone time, I'm not sure, but he's always been with family. So now he has a roommate instead, and the staff is kind of in another location. Trusting relationships with our remote support specialists. People ask, well, you always have the same person, and you won't always have the same person, but you'll often have the same few individuals. Most of our remote support staff works the same hours. So if you always have remote supports like, let's say after school hours, like from 4 to 7, the same people are generally going to be working those shifts. Maybe not every day, but generally the same people will be working. You can always ask, can I have Charlie? Can I have Chris? I want Rachel. Somebody's always there 24/7. So even if you, like I said, you're doing the example of 4 to 7 remote supports Monday through Friday, and you happen to call at 2 a.m. because you have the tablet and you have the ability, or you have the phone number to remote supports, every call will be answered. No call will go unanswered. We see people develop skills naturally with the time and safe space to make their own decisions. I've had the word enabling in my mind for probably way too long, 20 or 30 years, unfortunately, I say. But enabling people, I think I use that term when I say we do something for somebody else, something they can do for themselves. And there's a lot of things, like my example with Jess, that she could call her neighbor herself and say, can you come help me turn off my smoke detector? So when we do that for her, we're enabling her when she really could do that for herself. Some individuals couldn't, and we need to do it for them, and we will do it for them. But when that's part of her ISP and her team is saying, let's do that for her, let's help her learn how to call others, then that's what we're going to do. So where we're on board with whatever the learning outcomes, we want to be a part of that and help them do that. So it's much more than just saying, yeah, you need us, you're good, okay, bye. And the last one, I like that the care circle, the ISP team, everybody is involved there for that individual, can decide who, when, and how someone should be notified if needed. So we don't just automatically call whoever. All right, wrapping it up here, moving forward with us, what you would do is you'd say, I think this could work for whatever reason. And there's 4 things right there: independence, overnight staff, somebody who's a transition age, or behavior issues with staff. There's probably 100 other things that we could put in that category. But when you think you have somebody, whether you do or you don't, I'd say contact us and let's talk about it. You know, we've had several times and we think, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. And then we walk through and we talk about it, and then we realize, oh wait, what? They have a CPAP that they can't put on themselves. So when they get back into bed, somebody has to do that for them. We can't. You know, we're not physically there, and then we're like, this isn't. So there are limitations. There are things that we're not physically able to do with remote support. But contact us and have, you know, I wouldn't say don't let anything, you know, dissuade you. There's almost always things that we can imagine and do. And then we conduct in-person assessments with the entire care circle team. So, and in person, I guess that's not an outdated thing. We will be back doing it. And we are doing it now. I've been to a lot of homes in the past 6 months or however long things been going on. But if you're not comfortable with that, by all means, we can do it virtually. We can do it just like we are. Our field service engineers, our install guys, they still need to come out to the home though and install the equipment, and they take all the right protocols. And if for some reason we missed out and you need an extra camera or an extra sensor or don't need as much, then they just on the spot adjust that, and that's what happens. So we don't make it right, we will make it right. The third one there, we deliver individualized proposals. So everything is centered around your individual, your son, your daughter, your sister, brother, whoever it might be, is going to be for them. It's not, you know, checking boxes and because you have this, you need this. It's all individualized, customized. And then we have a care plan, and that involves our remote support staff, client services, who oversees that department, getting on board. My job is kind of to facilitate that between the client services, remote support people, and then the SSA and the individual and the caregivers, all of them, and saying, all right, how are we going to support them? And that's when it can get really nitpicky, and they want to know every little thing. You know, should we tell them to play Barry Manilow or, you know, Jimmy Buffett? We want to know because we want to know what they want to know and what's going to make them happy and feel loved and cared about. So I think that's it. 48 hours. Within 48 hours, typically we can do an install and training. We have, in Ohio, we have 3 guys that do our installs and training, and they live in Columbus area. So they can pretty much get anywhere within 2 days. Commencement of services, I put soon after because we typically need to have the ISP. We need to have that hammered out. You know, what song are we telling them? We don't want to tell them the wrong song and have them be mad at us and start this off on a bad foot. So we need to have that ISP and everything written in stone. But and we want to make sure the equipment is the correct equipment before we move forward with services. We would never start that on the same day. And this is probably another video that won't play, but it's on our this is Ben. And I love what Ben talks about in here. He talks about, I think this is like a 5-minute video. The other one was more like a minute, but they're both on our Facebook page. It won't play, Ashley. He talks a lot about, he uses just, when I look through it, it's all in the script down there, empowerment and what remote supports. And he's not one of ours. He's actually from out of Virginia, the Arc of Virginia, but just talks about what it means for him to be on his own and have some independence and empowerment. And it just gives me chills watching what he's able to have in his life. And that's what has brought me so much joy in this job, is watching that and getting excited for the individuals. And it's exciting. And for the whole team that gets to see, like, you know, parents that say, I'm going to sleep tonight because he's going to call you and not me. And then I say, yeah, he's not calling me, he's calling remote supports. But I do give them my card, and they do often call me too, so that's fine. Okay, so you can skip through this, and I want you guys to ask any questions if you have any that I probably rambled on so much you felt like you couldn't interrupt me, but you surely could. And I think there was one more, I mean, you have my contact information, right? You don't need to pull it back up, Ashley. Okay, yeah, my contact information was on there. And I'm going to send some flyers to Ashley that she can hand out, or you can, but if you go, we have a Facebook page now, if you're on Facebook. Dustin, right? And I'll tell you everybody about your dog, Denise. Ashley's smiling like she knows.
I tried to listen as much as I could. I had to keep getting up and following him. So
oh, that's fine. You've heard most of my spiel, I think, but
I've actually known Dustin and Denise for a good amount of time, so I do know about the dog and everything else too. So just so everyone knows to know, Denise has a dog that he has helped train to help Dustin with some of the things in his life. So she's definitely on top of things like that. So it's an adorable dog and very smart. So
yeah, amazing.
There he is.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, he's so cute and he's so smart. I came home and I tried to get my dog to do some stuff. I'm like, I'll never be like him.
So does anybody have any questions for Liz? I know she covered a lot, but it's so useful information. I highly encourage everyone, if you have someone or know someone that could benefit from talking to her, she's always there. I reach her with email and she responds within a couple hours. So I love the communication we have with her. So, I have a great presentation.
Oh, thanks, George. Two Georges here.
Oh yeah, I stole his account for today. So
I have a quick question. The cameras that, if we do get them in the house, are they monitored by the people, your support people? Or because, you know, in our situation, it's more, I want to take a shower and see if he's having a seizure in his room, you know, but I can't be two places at once. So. Right.
If they are assistive tech, if we're not doing remote supports, then they wouldn't be monitored by us. If you wanted them to be monitored, then that's when remote support steps in. So it would be, you know, one of two things. So you could have that be monitored by us. It would be remote supports, but it sounds like you would just want to monitor them, right? Yes. And you could have it. I mean, if you have a tablet or an iPad or something, you could monitor it through there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check that.
Right. Yeah. Nope. If we're not getting paid to do it, we're not. And generally, I think I told this man today, and actually this man today, he actually ended up saying, I want a camera. And I was like, you do? I'm like, we really don't need a camera with what you're telling me is going on in the home. But he felt like it might be more comforting to him to actually have somebody watching him. And I said, well, and I got to tell you this, when we use cameras, we aren't really watching you. Because if you imagine our remote supports people sitting in a room, and they watch more, they don't watch, they support more than one person at a time. So for them to have a camera that they're supposed to watch and see if Bob falls, that means nobody else is getting supported by that remote support specialist. That means they're going to watch this camera and see if Bob falls. And we don't have the manpower to do that. I don't know that any company does. We might as well have staff, you know, that's a one-on-one service. So what we do is, and I told Bob this, I said, I want you to know that we're not going to watch, what we're going to do is what we do is put sensors in the home, like we already talked about, the chair presence sensor. If we notice that you're not in your chair, we'll get an alert that says Bob's not in his chair. Now we're going to look at the screen and see, okay, well, he's moving around. If we get an alert that says you're not moving and you're not in your chair, then we're going to look at the camera to see, did he fall? And we're going to talk right through that camera to say, Bob, it looks like you fell. Are you okay? We're calling 911. Hold on, stay on the phone. So it's not going to be a constant watching of the camera 12, you know, especially for him, he's all but 12 hours every week. So to watch that camera would be exhausting. It's surveillance. So we use the cameras when an event occurs to check in. And I know, Denise, that's not your case, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that even if cameras are there, we're not surveillance. We're not an alarm company. So. Right.
And then the second part to Mahoning County, Ashley, maybe, you know, are there things that you guys say, well, can't do that because it's in his bedroom or something? Because again, we have a totally different situation, but is there some kind of regulations that Mahoning County would say, well, we can't allow that to happen? I think Jamie and I discussed something, and I forget what the actual issue was.
Human rights or something?
Something like, again, that it wouldn't be allowed because he's an adult and I'm watching him on a camera.
You know, a little bit to answer that is anything that would be camera related, we would have to probably take through human rights. And then that's just how it works. If there's something that is, you know, that we need to be aware of, you know, sometimes people put cameras in common areas. Sometimes you'll see cameras where they're in a congregate site. How does that impact somebody else that's living in a congregate site? So those are all the issues that you'll have to go through with the team, and then eventually human rights. So you do run into that sometimes.
For human rights, they review it as a committee, you discuss why you need it, and then they decide whether or not it's going against Dustin's rights or it's not, and then you just meet annually for that to keep going. If they do agree that that's okay to have, you just meet annually to make sure that it's still acceptable and there's a purpose for it and that there's not other solutions that could be looked at instead.
And Ashley, I just want to say that there's nothing to be concerned about with human rights. It's just another step in the process to make sure that we're following what we need to follow to get that we're not violating anything. So it's nothing to be afraid of, just something the team needs to work through.
Thanks for saying that, George. I know I feel like, and not just Mahoning County, well, I've never heard it in Mahoning County, but any county, when the HRC, a Human Rights Committee, comes up, it's like, oh gosh, but I think that's a nice way of wording it. That's just something to go through, make sure.
Perfect. If you guys have any other questions, you can always reach out to Liz. If you're unsure of things, you can always reach out to any of us at Mahoning County. We'll help you find the answer, or we'll ask Liz to get the answer for us, whatever we need done. So whatever you guys need, please feel free to contact us and we'll help you. Liz, thank you again. It was a great presentation. We truly appreciate you coming and doing this today.
Absolutely. I miss all you. I miss coming out to Mahoning County. And
it's a little weird not to have you monthly.
I know. I miss bringing donuts, and then you guys don't eat them, and then I have to eat them. And
such a punishment to have to eat those donuts.
I know. I leave them, but I eat one at least. Thank you guys for having me and letting me take up your time. I appreciate it.